be able to sort that out. All right, so hi everyone, and welcome to another Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube live weekly session. And this is session number 66. And tonight I'll be talking about how is the Australian market for engineers in this time of COVID-19. So stay with me until the end, and I'll also be talking about my free workshop that's going to start next week. But for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida. I'm the founder of www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website to share content of value and relevant information for your journey towards engineering qualification validation here in Australia. And also I share some information about the day-to-day of an engineer. I talk about workplace health and safety, environmental management, and how to get your first professional job in Australia as well. And if you have any comments or any questions about the validation process or any other issue or subject related to engineering here in Australia, please leave in the comments, and I will keep an eye on the comments to see if I can help you in any way. And stay tuned to know more about the online free workshop, Engineering Qualification Validation, that is coming up starting from next week. So if you can invite somebody to this live, think about 2 engineers that you know that could benefit of this live session, and share this live with them. In Facebook, it's fairly simple. You've got the share button, so if you can share, and then you send to another 2 engineers. In Instagram, there's like an icon, looks like a little airplane, a paper airplane. So when you click on that, you can then share and send to another people. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you will need to, if you have your comments going, you just need to close the comments, and then there is a share button, and then you can share to another 2 people. And then you can just click on the comments, and the comments will come back. So if you do this, yeah, thank you very much, because then it kind of more people can have this content as well. So let's get started. So what has changed in the market with this pandemic? Well, the fundamental change, in my view, in the market is that unemployment rate has increased substantially, and the country is in recession. Unfortunately, Australia is in recession after almost 30 years, since the last recession was in the 1990s. So, but the pandemic didn't shut down manufacturing and construction activities in general. Obviously, it has impacted a lot of industries, even in manufacturing and construction, but it hasn't shut down like other industries, like hospitality, mainly hospitality and arts. So what impacted was that because unemployment rate in other industries have increased, the purchasing power of families have decreased, which impacted in the engineering and construction industry. So there are less people buying new houses, there are less products being manufactured, and obviously there are less demand for resources. And also banks, they are more wary about lending money, as they need to get more assurance that their loan can get paid by people who get the money. And also population in general is more careful about expenditure, as there is certainly a natural concern how the job market will be in the future if the pandemic keeps going for an extended period of time. And it's not just the pandemic, the control of the pandemic here in Australia, but it's the control of pandemic in other parts of the world, and in countries that Australia has very close relationships, especially commercial relationship. If those countries, they don't really control very well the pandemic, it means that their economy also is not going to be good, and therefore it can impact the domestic production here in Australia. The other question that I said that I was going to approach in this live session was, are there more or less jobs for engineers? So the engineering industry is very broad, and within those industries there are sectors that have shrunk and others that have grown. Infrastructure industry, for example, hasn't shrunk, and governments are injecting funding in this industry, infrastructure industry, to stimulate growth and employment. Usually, those infrastructure projects, they provide long-term employment and involve several sectors in engineering. If you think about a project like, I'm in Brisbane, and here in Brisbane we've got the Cross River Rail project, which is a fairly large infrastructure project, one of the largest in Australia. There's going to be a twin tunnel under the river and going to have several stations across the CBD and inner city as well. So if you think about a project of that magnitude, it requires a diverse range of engineers working in that project. For example, the obvious ones are civil engineers, electrical engineers, tunnel engineers, rail engineers, systems engineers, geotechnical engineers, mining engineers, electronics engineers, environmental engineers, and mechanical engineers. Those are the obvious ones, because when you think about a project like that complex, you will have a lot of those engineers working there. And as I promised, I'll talk about my online free workshop, Engineering Qualification Validation, and it will happen next month, or sorry, this month, no, next month, we're still in September. So, and the opening live webinar will be on Sunday, the 4th of October at 10 a.m. Brisbane time. So if you want to register to the free workshop, you can just access the link that it's in the video description, and I will also probably be putting in the comments. So put in the comments here in Facebook, and I'm going to also put in the comments in YouTube. And for those ones watching in Instagram, the link is in my bio. If you go to my bio, there's a linktree/JersonIda link. When you click on that link, it will open up a box with few buttons, and you can go and click on the first one, which is to register to the free workshop. And later on, I'm going to explain how the workshop is going to work. And the other question is, which cities would have better opportunities? And this is a question that I get a lot. People send me questions, send me messages asking which city is good for engineers to work. Well, the answer is that it will depend on what better opportunities mean for you and your skills and your capabilities. Better opportunities can mean that you have some particular skills. Better opportunities could mean that there's better opportunities for migration purposes. If you are already a permanent resident, better opportunities would mean other things. So, and you got to remember that the market rule of supply and demand will always apply, regardless of having a pandemic or the size of the city. And obviously, cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane will always have more opportunities. But keep in mind that in those large cities, they will probably have more competition as well. So a lot of people, they say that they would like to go to Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane because in those large cities, there will be more opportunities, there will be more job opportunities. Certainly there will be more job opportunities. Obviously, there are more companies, and the large companies are probably in those cities. But you got to remember that in those cities, the population is bigger as well, and certainly competition will be bigger. So you gotta keep in mind that in those large cities, also there are some migration constraints. So please have a talk with your registered migration agent to explore your migration options. I know a lot of engineers that they decided they were living in those large cities, but they ended up choosing to go to other cities that they are considered kind of a regional cities like Adelaide or Hobart, Perth, Darwin, or even Canberra. Although they're capital of their states, they still considered as regional, and your migration agent will certainly give you the right advice if it's a good idea or not to move to those cities. And also there are certainly many advantages outside of the three large cities, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. The competition will be lower. There are still many companies recruiting for engineers in cities like, as I said, Adelaide, Hobart, Darwin, Canberra, Perth, Sunshine Coast, Townsville, Gold Coast, and other larger cities, but they are not capital of the states. And the other question that I said I was going to approach was, what can I do to improve my chances to get a job as an engineer? There are a few things that I listed here. One is networking. Networking is fairly important. And I understand that for some people could be a little bit more difficult because you are still perhaps an international student. When I came to Australia, I came as an international student. I didn't know anyone, but I tried to increase my networking activities. I became a member of the Australian Institute of Project Management, so I could attend those meetings. Obviously, there is a fee involved and you've got to pay a membership, etc. But it opens up some doors for you to attend some of the project management events where you're going to meet some companies and potential employers. I ended up going to Engineers Australia even before I was validated. I went to Engineers Australia events. Some Engineers Australia branches, they have like a overseas, what they call overseas graduated engineers group, and they usually do now, because of pandemic, probably not doing so often, but they were doing meetings, and after I got validated and after I got my registration, I ended up going there and did some presentations for overseas engineers as well. And obviously, the more you do networking, the more you open up your doors, you increase your profile, so other companies and other people can get to know you. If you go to TAFE, if you're studying at TAFE, perhaps the TAFE has some program for internship, and then if you get an internship, even if it's for free, via TAFE or via the school that you are studying or the university, you can get introduced to companies which will increase your networking. It's also important to have a migration plan with a registered migration agent to avoid wasting your time, money, and frustration. When you talk to your migration agent, he or she will give you probably the better advice in terms of, all right, your chances in terms of future points and future locations and future options for a permanent visa or a sponsor visa or a regional visa is going to be like this. And so you can concentrate your studies, you can concentrate your job hunting in those locations. A lot of people, they don't want to leave Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane, but you've got to remember that if your final objective is to get a permanent residency here in Australia, perhaps for a short period of time, you need to accept the fact that you need to move to a regional city and then get your plan of having your permanent residency done. And then after you get that, you can always go back as a permanent resident. You can always then go back to those larger cities. And I know a lot of engineers that they were living in larger cities. They ended up going to a smaller city like Adelaide or Perth, and they liked a lot, and they got a job there, and they still live there until today. Another strategy for you to help you to perhaps improve your chances to get a job as an engineer is to keep reading technical articles. Keep reading the legislation that is impacting the engineers here in Australia. Workplace health and safety legislation, environmental management legislation. Read the technical specifications within your area of expertise. One, to keep your CPD up and going, and two, so you have a better understanding how the legislation and how the standards are in Australia. If you are going to go to an interview, obviously employers will know that you are an overseas trained engineer, and they're probably going to ask you questions about the local legislation and the local standards. And if you say that you don't know, and if you had plenty of time to read and understand the local legislation and local standards, and if you didn't, perhaps that's not going to give a good impression to the potential employer. So if you have questions about where you can find technical articles and legislation, etc., send me a message, and then I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Perhaps I'll do another live session just about how you can keep your CPD, continuing professional development, up and going, because you are here in Australia, you not work as an engineer, and you're probably not really keeping your CPD up and going. And if you're thinking about the validation process of your qualification, CPD, continuing professional development, is something that you need to demonstrate to Engineers Australia. Another strategy is to customize your CV, your curriculum vitae, and your cover letter to the Australian way. Obviously, if you are an overseas trained engineer, you came from another country. And I come from Brazil, and in Brazil we have some styles of CVs and cover letters, which here in Australia is very different. I know that because obviously I work in the industry, and in my position in my company, I recruited already several dozens of engineers and project managers. And the way that when I speak with HR of my company and the way that we recruit here is very different. So I see a lot of, and I've seen already many CVs from Brazilian engineers. And when they come to us, to the panel, I look at that and I shake my head and I think, oh, yeah, that's very sorry, because the CV is not good. It doesn't really tell what needs to tell. The cover letter doesn't really say much, and they missed the opportunity. I can see that some engineers, they have very good background and very good experience, but because it's not really tailored to the Australian way of the CV and cover letter, they don't even make to the shortlisting for the interview. And if you're lucky enough and competent enough to be selected and shortlisted to an interview, you need to understand how to behave in a professional interview in Australia. So again, I've done already a few live sessions about CV and cover letters and professional interviews. I may repeat that again because it's an issue that always come up, and I will probably cover this one. The other strategy, and one of the most important strategies, is to validate your engineering qualification. If you are an overseas trained engineer, and if you are in Australia trying to get a job as an engineer, you will need to get your your engineering qualification validated. Obviously, it's not a requirement, but it becomes almost a requirement because of the current situation. So, and majority of reputable companies will ask if you have your engineering qualification validated, which demonstrates that you have been assessed by Engineers Australia and your qualification is equivalent to an Australian qualification. Especially in times like this, in times of pandemic, where there are a lot of large number of engineers in the market. Unfortunately, there is already a large number of engineers in the market. Even before the pandemic, there was already a lot of engineers in the market. And recruiters and employers, they have at their disposal a broad range of options. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of engineers there looking for jobs. So let's imagine the following scenario. Let's say that you are the employer, you are the person that is recruiting to hire an engineer. So you represent the company that's hiring an engineer, and after then having advertised a position for a part-time graduate engineer, let's say. And I'm saying part-time graduate engineer because probably as an international student, or if you are already a PR but you want to get your first professional job, perhaps that is the one that suits the majority of you. As an international student, you can just work 20 hours a week, so part-time is the way to go. And then you get about 45 resumes, 45 applications. So the next step is to shortlist the candidates and then the panel to come up with 3, 4, perhaps for a professional interview. And in this process of shortlisting, you're probably going to go to do a first cut. And I can tell you, one of the criteria could be if you are validated or not. Imagine you have 45 applications and you need to go down to 3 or 4 applications. What would you do? Well, I'll tell you what we do here. We check first if they are validated. We check those ones that are also members of Engineers Australia, or they are chartered professional engineers. And I can tell you that there's a lot of engineers that they already are chartered professional engineers looking for jobs. If you don't know, a chartered professional engineer is a second level in the status of an engineer here in Australia. The first status is when you are recognized, you're validated, and then the second status is when you are chartered professional engineer, which means that you can work autonomously. And if you are not validated, then your job hunting in this position will probably going to finish here. Because you're not validated, there's another 30 engineers that are validated or chartered professional engineers, and the panel will probably select to further shortlisting just those ones that are validated or chartered professional. And in a scenario where you could have more than half of the candidates already validated, then if you're not validated yet, your chances are close to 0, unfortunately. And this is the reality. You don't want to be eliminated in this first cut. You want at least to go to an interview. So to improve your chances, you've got to stop procrastinating. I know that I can tell you 99% of you guys are procrastinating. You know that you need to get validated. You know you read already the booklet, but you just haven't started yet. So if you want to improve your chances to get a job as an engineer, you've got to stop procrastinating. A lot of people I see in Facebook comments, they say, yeah, you don't need to validate. You can work as an engineer here without validation. In some states you can. In Australia you can't. In Queensland you can't. You've got to be registered to provide professional engineering services if you're not supervised. But in other places, if you are, even companies are hiring people, engineers that are not validated, but because of the large number of engineers in the market, they will probably going to select somebody that is already validated. So you've got to stop procrastinating, and this process really takes time, and you've got to start the validation process now. There's no question about it. And also, if you live in Victoria or New South Wales, from 1 July 2021, those states will follow what Queensland is doing for almost 90 years. And to be registered, you need to pass stage 2 with Engineers Australia. So just to explain what happened in Victoria and New South Wales. Late last year and this year, the parliament of those 2 states, they passed legislation saying that registration of engineers, I think it's 5 categories: civil, mechanical, electrical, fire safety, and chemical, I think, structural. If you are one of those engineers in those states, you have to be registered. There will be, and now it's legislation, so if you are not registered and if you are providing professional engineering services, you will be committing a criminal offense. So, but there will be a transition period from 1 July 2021. But for you to be registered, which is stage 2, you first gotta get your stage 1. You gotta get your engineering qualification validated first, and then get some time working, and then you can apply for stage 2, which is to be registered professional engineer of those states. Here in Queensland, for you to be RPQ, a registered professional engineer of Queensland, you either gotta be a chartered professional engineer with Engineers Australia, or a registered professional engineer with Professionals Australia. So there is quite a process to get stage 2. But you're not going to get stage 2 if you're not stage 1. And stage 1 is the recognition of your overseas qualification. So it means that in the near future, those engineers in Victoria and in New South Wales that are not registered will have a market disadvantage, as most companies will be hiring registered engineers. If you are already in Queensland, if you are searching for a job here, you probably saw that the majority of the job advertisements, they require engineers to be RPQ. And then you can ask yourself, what the hell is RPQ? RPQ is Registered Professional Engineer of Queensland. I am RPQ since 2009, I think. So it's been 9 years that I already registered as RPQ. I was validated back in 2006, and I got my RPQ in 2008, 2009. So I can provide professional engineering services autonomously. Those engineers that are not RPQ here in Queensland, they either gotta be supervised by a registered professional engineer in Queensland, or they gotta be following strictly a prescriptive procedure. So it means that they cannot change anything. They cannot amend, they cannot make any decisions. If they do, the Board of Professional Engineers of Queensland, they can prosecute you, and you go to the court, you can pay fines, you can even go to jail, depends on what was the severity of the offense. So it's certainly a good idea to start thinking and start your process of validation. And because I saw many people get in trouble, I decided to do my project since last year, Engineers in Australia. And I share a lot of information. As I said, this is live 66. So it means that for 1 year and 14 weeks, which is nearly 3 months. So 1 year and 3 months, every week I am doing these live sessions, sharing information with you guys, so you guys can have more information. When I came here back in 2005, didn't have any information, and I'm happy to share the information with you guys. And a good start is to participate in my free online engineering qualification validation workshop, starting on the 4th of October, next Sunday, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. in the morning, Brisbane time. Is going to be, those in Brazil, is going to be 9 p.m. Saturday. And it's going to be a full week of events. There will be live sessions. I will be sending recorded videos to your email. When you register it, we'll have your email address, of course, and then I can send you videos. I recorded 3 videos, and those videos are fairly comprehensive. Each video would have between 25 and 35 minutes, so of pure content. So there is about an hour, almost an hour and a half of content explaining the whole validation process since the beginning until the end. So after the workshop, you'll be able to understand the whole process, and you will be able to start your validation process after the free workshop. And to register, I'm also going to be doing live Instagram sessions. I'm going to be responding questions, and there will be some interactive things. So next Sunday, 10 a.m. is going to be a live webinar. Once you register to the workshop, I will send you an email with the link to participate in the live webinar. And the opening webinar, I'm going to explain how the workshop is going to work. I'm going to talk about procrastination as well. And that's going to be the start of the event. So to register, just click on the link that it's in the video description, or the ones that I put in the comments in Facebook and YouTube. And in Instagram, you can go to the link in my bio, and when you click on the link, it will open up a box with a few buttons. The first button is the one that you can register for free. And just make sure that once you're registered, you will receive 2 emails. One welcome email, and a second one is a confirmation email. If you don't receive the 2 emails in 5 or 10 minutes, it's because they are sitting in your junk mailbox. So I don't know why, but the email providers, some of them, they send to the junk mailbox. What you need to do, you just need to create a contact name, put Gerson Ida, and then put my email address there, admin@engineersinaustralia.com. And once you get my emails in the future, it's not going to go in the junk mail. And all the communications and all the video links are going via email. So it's very, very important that you save my email address in your contacts. And because I know that a lot of you guys not going to go there, not going to save my email in the contacts, I'm also sending to my Telegram group. As I mentioned before, I have my Telegram group. And what is Telegram? Telegram is like a WhatsApp. It's an app that I created a group. I've got more than 700 people in that group. And once I have my workshop, when I send videos, when I send links, I also send in the Telegram. The advantage is that Telegram doesn't really have an algorithm. And because it doesn't have an algorithm, all the message that I send goes to the receiver. Obviously, it's your decision to open or not. So I'm going to paste the link to be part of the Telegram group as well. So paste in Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. If you are in Instagram and not part of the Telegram group, you can go to my link in my bio. One of the buttons in the box is going to be to join the Telegram group. But before joining the Telegram group, you gotta download the Telegram app, obviously. And also follow my profile on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and activate the notification so you know when you have a new video, when a new video is uploaded. I'm going to also put in here, because I also place my videos in YouTube, so it's a good idea for you to be subscribed. And those one in Instagram, it's also in my link. You can join my subscribe to my channel when you click on that link. All right, so I hope that those tips for you about how is the market for engineers in Australia in these times of COVID assisted you in your journey to a professional job here in Australia. And please don't forget to register to the free online engineering qualification validation workshop that's starting next Sunday, 4th of October, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. In Brazil, it's going to be 9 p.m. on Saturday. And in Colombia, I've got some engineers, the audience in Colombia is going to be 3 years early, so 3 hours early. So it's going to be 7 p.m. Saturday in Colombia. And after the workshop, as I said, you understand the whole process and you will be able to start your validation process. I'm just going to check if I have any particular question there. Don't believe I have got any question. Instagram. Don't believe there is any question in Instagram. No. All right. So thank you very much for your participation, and I'll see you again next Sunday here on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time. But the opening of the workshop is going to be the live webinar next Sunday, 4th of October, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. I'll see you there, and bye-bye.